Mangwana ni mwalelepo vukenjani klekwa swanawe Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning on Friday, the 20th of August, 2021, as we continue to bring you the news and current affairs happening in the SADC region and beyond. As usual, you are joined by Ashwin Mberi and Aina Raiza Kweyo.
Happy Friday, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us. Now, today is World Mosquito Day, which was first established in 1897 when the link between mosquitoes and malaria transmission was discovered by Sir Ronald Ross. It also aims to raise awareness about the causes of malaria and how it can be prevented, as well as fundraising for research into the cure for malaria. It is also a salute to the groundbreaking work of Sir Ross and scientists who have followed him. And here is more on World Mosquito Day. Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now, in our top stories this morning, Taliban triumph means more worries in Africa. The return of the Taliban in Afghanistan has taken the world by surprise. In Africa, it compounds the worry and fear in countries struggling to crush Islamist insurgencies. Over a decade now, there's been a surge in the activities of extremist groups in East and West Africa, the Sahel, and parts of Southern Africa. Many are Islamist militant groups with some form of affiliation to Al-Qaeda, an organization the United Nations has said shares links with the Taliban in Afghanistan. Somalia-based media affiliated with the homegrown Al-Shabaab group hailed the Taliban's takeover in Afghanistan in what could be seen as a show of support, says London-based political analyst Ahmed Rabaj.
In our second story, Guinea identifies 58 contacts of Ebola patients in Ivory Coast. Guinean authorities say 58 people have been confined to their homes after being identified as contacts of a woman who contracted the Ebola virus. The Ebola case was discovered in Ivory Coast in an 18-year-old Guinean woman who had traveled by bus from Labe, Guinea, a journey of some 1,500 kilometers. It was Ivory Coast's first known case of the disease since 1994. On Tuesday, the WHO said 9 Ebola contact cases had been identified in Ivory Coast following the case of the Guinean woman there. She is being treated in a hospital in Abidjan while health workers are being vaccinated against the disease. Residents of the Abidjan district where the young Guinean woman was staying are also being vaccinated.
In our next story, Rwandan troops notched up early success in Cabo Delgado. Rwandan troops have notched up remarkable early success against insurgents in the Cabo Delgado region of northern Mozambique, reports a civil society observer group. Cabo Delgado's July report says Rwanda's 700 soldiers and 300 police officers quickly entered the fight upon arriving in Cabo Delgado. They made an immediate impact by successfully seizing territory along the important N380 highway, retaking the strategic town of Diaka, Awase, and the port of Mokimbao da Praia in under a month. In battles of the N320 corridor, the most common insurgent approach has been to set ambushes for Mozambique troops as they travel along a predictable, heavily wooded route according to the Cabo Ligado report.
Next up, Somalia army kills 25 al-Shabaab fighters. The Somali government says a joint operation by the army and local forces in the central regions have killed 25 al-Shabaab fighters. On Monday, the Somali government stated that in operations over the last month, it had killed 275 jihadist militants. The government has promised to work with federal member states that hit al-Shabaab hard. This comes at a time when the country is gearing up for a presidential election. Through indirect elections, Somalia is electing 54 senators for the upper house and 275 MPs for the lower house of its bicameral parliament. The election season will end with a presidential poll through a joint session by the senators and legislators, which is expected to take place on October 10.
Africa, over 185,000 COVID deaths across the continent. As of the 18th of August 2021, confirmed cases of COVID-19 from 55 African countries reached over 7 million, while over 56 million vaccinations have been administered across the continent. Reported deaths in Africa reach over 185,000 and over 6 million people have recovered. South Africa has the most reported cases of over 2 million and 77,000 people have died. Other most affected countries are Morocco, Tunisia, Ethiopia, Egypt, and Kenya. The numbers are compiled by the Center of System Science and Engineering at the Johns Hopkins University using statistics from the World Health Organization and other international institutions, as well as national and regional public health departments.
11,000 Cameroonians flee to Chad after communal violence. At least 11,000 people, mostly women and children, have fled their intercommunal clashes between fishermen and herders in Cameroon. They arrived in neighboring Chad over the weekend, humanitarian organizations have said. UNHCR said its officials visited one of the areas hosting refugees from Cameroon together with partners on 14 August to meet with the new arrivals and assess their needs ahead of a response. The main needs are food, non-food items and shelters, the UN body said. About 20 people have been killed in clashes between fishermen and herders in the far north region of Cameroon, the deadliest intercommunal violence in the country in contemporary times. Authorities in Cameroon have deployed the military to the area and are holding peace meetings with representatives of the two communities.
Activists slam J&J for exporting vaccine produced in South Africa to Europe. Health activists in Africa have slammed Johnson & Johnson for exporting vaccine produced in South Africa to countries in Europe which already have immunized large numbers of their people and have even donated vaccine to more needy countries. The one-dose J&J vaccine were exported from South Africa, where they had been assembled despite the pressing need for vaccine across Africa, where less than 3% of the continent's 1.3 billion population have been fully vaccinated. We believe that the conduct of Johnson & Johnson has been scandalous, immoral, and unconstitutional. Fatima Hassan of the Health Justice Initiative, an advocacy group in South Africa, said.
Next up, Mali's transitional president justifies coup he staged last year in anniversary speech. The transitional president of Mali, Colonel Assimi Goïta, has justified his ascension to power in a televised address on the eve of the first anniversary of the military coup which toppled former President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. He explained that what happened on 18 August was a culmination. The collapse of the state on 22 March 2012, an earlier coup, should have been followed by a patriotic upsurge. Instead, it led to a decay of governance. The National Army, your army, could not remain in a state of inaction. It therefore took its responsibility and intervened to make the people's wish for change a reality. On 18 August 2020, a young group of officers in Mali's armed forces led a coup d'etat, arresting the beleaguered President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta and Prime Minister Bobo Cissé. The pair resigned later that day, and the military took charge, led by a body called the National Committee for the Salvation of the People. Goïta has vowed to uphold the deadline of 27 February 2022 for holding democratic elections for a return to civilian rule.
In our next story, Minister confirms suspect arrested over death of 14-year-old pregnant minor. Police have arrested the suspect involved in the death of a 14-year-old child, Memory Machaya, who died while giving birth at the Marange Apostolic Church Shrine last month in Manicaland Province. Women's Affairs Minister Sitembi Sonyoni confirmed the arrest. Evans Hombarume, who allegedly impregnated the minor, was arrested on Wednesday by the police in Mutare and is expected to appear in court. MDC Alliance Mutare Central MP Innocent Gonose asked the measures the government was taking to curb child marriages. We have seen an increase in the upsurge and an increase in the incidence of child marriages. My question is in the view of the fact that we do not have a specific law in place yet to criminalize and penalize the transgressors.
In our next story, flash floods in Ethiopian capital Addis kill at least 7 people. At least 7 people have died in flash flooding that hit Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa after torrential rains, officials said on Wednesday. Images from the capital showed firefighters wading through brown water to inspect flooded houses and in one instance walking through sludge with a stretcher to remove a body. Houses and cars were submerged by the waters following the downpour which pelted several neighborhoods of Addis Ababa on Tuesday, causing chaos. The Addis Ababa Fire and Emergency Prevention and Rescue Commission said 7 people had died and that others were receiving treatment in a hospital. Many parts of Ethiopia receive heavy rainfall during the months between June and September. Last month, Ethiopia completed the second phase of filling up the Grand Renaissance Dam, taking advantage of the heavy rain.
In Congo, Olam and WCS agree on a biodiversity around Noable Doki Park. An agreement has just been signed between the Congolese Authority, the subsidiary Olam International, and the non-governmental organization Wildlife Conservation Society. The protection of the biodiversity of the Noable Doki Park National Park depends on the good management of its buffer zone. The park, whose management is delegated to the American NGO WCS, covers an area of 4,000 kilometers and a home to a large number of critically endangered wildlife species. This is the case of the Africa's forest elephant, whose population is being decimated by poachers, cohabit with populations of chimpanzees and western lowland gorillas. It is in order to preserve the rich biodiversity of Noable Doki is enlisted as a heritage site by UNESCO.
Now in the last of our top stories, Namibia, isotope hydrology to preserve groundwater resources. In Namibia, drought is causing huge quantities of fresh water to evaporate. The challenge today is to preserve the resource. The approach chosen by the Namibian government is isotope hydrology, developed by the International Atomic Energy Agency to determine the origin, age, movement, and quantity of fresh water in Namibia in 2021. Using a laser spectroscopic analyzer, the agency's experts will examine samples of collected fresh water and interpret them according to the stable isotopes present in each water molecule. According to the IAEA, by measuring the 14C content of water samples, scientists can estimate the age of groundwater up to 40,000 years. In Namibia, a country with an arid climate, the drought phenomenon is not new, but in recent years, it has worsened due to rising temperatures, drying up essential water points for agriculture, livestock, and human consumption. All right, that brings us to the end of your top stories, but I promise you we've got a jam-packed hour for you here on Africa Good Morning. See you after the break.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now, the members of the Otjiwarongo Sheikh Dwellers Association are encouraging more Namibians to join the federation. They say their model is to provide housing to low-income Namibians, many of whom live in shacks without a basic service connection. Situated in Extension 9 of Orotoweni, Otjiwarongo in central Namibia, these proud homeowners did much of the work themselves, negotiating land parcels, planning, laying down service connection, and even more. Now, in this clip, they explain how and why the Federation's unique bottom-up approach to becoming a homeowner. And here's more on that.
They believe now that within Federation program, you can get a house at a cheaper rate, but a house with quality. So really, the community themselves, they are very happy about the Federation. It's a dream come true. It's a dream come true to see. Actually, we waited for long. They didn't believe that really can Federation provide houses. And now when they saw it with their own eyes, they are saying, wow, this is marvelous. Even the municipality themselves, they are very happy. They are delighted about this program. And they have partnered with us, saying that we have seen that the Federation can produce. And now the future is Federation. We struggled almost for 10 years until we managed to acquire this land and build houses here. The land were given to us 2016. The construction started 2019. So we completed the first phase in 2020. So the 2020 to 2021. We constructed about 65 houses here, of which the members, the beneficiaries, are happy about it, because those are the low and middle income earners. Most of them are street vendors, domestic workers, and general workers.
People are still coming because they see the progress of this 65 plotted, so they know that Federation is working. They are still coming. We are meeting every Sunday. It's only due to this COVID, it's like a bit problem.
After the completion of these houses, a lot of within the community, they rise up and then they started gathering and attending the meetings, of whereby we have now almost 2,000 members. We are requesting, actually we approach the municipality plus the governor so that he can provide plots to us, of which even about in this year, at least minimum 500 plots, so that we can, our people can get houses. Yeah, in terms of land ownership, we have these, they have title deeds, of which the land is on the beneficiary's name. And the service that we did here, we did it ourselves. The sewer was done by the member themselves. The installation of water, it was done by the member themselves. Per month, we are paying 360, of which you are going to pay for 10 years. She's very happy because she used to live in a Czech, another location, Saraipes. And now once she moved in a brick house, she's very happy about that. Yeah, she moved in last year in August.
Okay.
And she's very happy, delighted when she moved in her house with all those facilities, the water and the electricity that is there.
we should come and join federation. It's better than staying in the chuck. So people out there, please come and join federation. It's better than staying in the chuck. It's better to own your own house.
So die enigste hoop wat ons gehad het was die federasie wat daar was. Maar dit het ook tyd gevat, dit was nie makliker nie, maar al wat ons maar besluit het om bietjie maar moed te hou en te kyk waar kan ons uitkom. Wat ons gedoen het in die begin het ons die riool van die rioolpyp. Eintlik het ons die grond self as federasie gediens. Want dit was 'n bietjie goedkoper geweest om uit te kom of iemand te kry. Ons het 'n survey gehad wat ons gelê waar ons die lyne moet lê, pype moet lê en dit het ons van ons sak af, eintlik van ons sak af self gedoen.
Dit vat soms jare, maar aanhouer wen moet hulle wees.
Mens voel heeltemal beter. Want as kyk, jy het nie geglo jy sal daar kom, jy is nog daar. En dan is dit nou kyk, die sukkel en die drome wat jy gehad, die slegte drome is alles op 'n eind. Dis nou om vorentoe te kyk en ook te hoop dat die ander mense dieselfde pad kan volg.
Now, as we'd like to remind you, Africa Good Morning is committed to bringing you news from every part of Africa as often as possible. And we are glad to report our first report from inside Botswana with our very first Tswana correspondent herself, Boto Tswetla. Boto, Wareng.
Ashwin, how are you?
I am fantastic, Boto. Let's get straight into your first story. Now, in the past 3 years, Botswana has recorded an increase of about 2,000 destitute. Could you please tell us about this?
Yes. The number of destitutes in the country rose from 37,934 in the financial year 2018 to 2019 to 39,142 in 2020 and slightly during 2021 to 39,969. In the last 3 years, at least 112 destitutes have been rehabilitated and are now able to sustain their lives without government or NGOs' assistance. However, the low rehabilitation rate has been evident across all districts in these years. Amongst the registered are permanent destitutes, which are rendered completely dependent on welfare assistance because of age, their physical disabilities, or mental incapacitation. And on the other hand, there are temporary destitutes who can and hopefully will be rehabilitated as they are temporarily incapacitated by natural disasters such as drought, ill health, and any other emergency. The most deprived children seem to be those residing in remote rural areas and the lower income households, women-headed households, and from families with a member that is HIV positive.
All right. Now, in your second story, Boto, the phase 2 of the vaccination for those that are in the National Development and Vaccination Plan has commenced. Please tell us more.
Yes. As of yesterday, the Ministry of Health and Wellness commenced with vaccination of those in the phase 2 category from the last vaccination of phase 1 of those aged 55 and above, which ended in March 2021. Although phase 2 category covers adults aged 30 to 54 age groups, the target for now will be those aged 45 years and above to manage congestion at vaccination sites. Alongside those in the phase 2 category, COVID-19 vaccination will also be administered on some frontline workers, including security personnel, those in the mining sector, and the teaching fraternity. Logistics on the rollout of the vaccinations will be facilitated by the district health management teams across the country. Greater Gaborone Zone is the first to release vaccines with the Gaborone, Mogoditshane, Ramotswa, and Tlokweng areas offering the Johnson and Johnson vaccine, and all other sites in the Greater Gaborone will be offering AstraZeneca first and second dose, the Sinovac second dose, and Pfizer second dose.
All right. Thank you very much, Boto, for bringing us our very first report from Botswana. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you for having me.
All right, this is Africa. Good morning. Next up, we're going to be looking at that thing that we depend on for us to feel good physically. Personally, I'm hoping that the weather is as good as it is in Botswana, because I don't know if you saw the lighting on Boto. The sun is looking beautiful over there. All right, check out the weather forecast up next. Now, in our next story, petroleum system in the Kavango Basin is basically much hype without proof. A press conference organized yesterday by the Women's Leadership Center of Namibia makes it clear that all exploration in the Kavango region flies directly in the face of renewable alternatives. A recent remark by the Namibian President, Dr. Hage Geingob, that Namibia's people tend to speak too much, jolted the civil rights community into action. Geingob made the remark when shutting up a question addressed by the media to Craig Stenker, the founder member of the Canadian gas and oil exploration company Reconnaissance Energy Africa. Specifically, Stenker was asked to comment on a very critical report by the investigative firm Viceroy Research, which alleges that the complete project is an investor scam that sparked cynical replies from the president. Now, geologist Matt Totten Jr., who we've had on the show before, was one of the people that elaborated on the subject.
That, hey, there's this oil company coming to frack in Namibia, And as soon as I heard that, I was immediately concerned, because we all know Namibia is an extremely water-scarce country, and fracking requires enormous amounts of both water and number of rigs to produce, drill sites to produce, and so this in the Kavango region, in one of Africa's most pristine wildlife areas, is outrageous, to say the least. Nowhere in the world is there a sedimentary basin this deep that doesn't produce commercial hydrocarbons. And then they said, given the nature that this basin, of the basin, and its tremendous thickness, this is pretty much a no-brainer. They released some data trying to say they had gas shows and oil shows, but this was really laughable because their peak gas shows were maxed out at 5 units on a 10,000 unit scale. Okay, that's just 0.05% mud gas concentration. There's more gas in a can of beans than that. And, and it really could be measurement error. That is within the measurement error of the mud log gas chromatograph. Okay, and the investor community isn't buying it either. That point there, that inflection point where the stock price really took a dive, that's their data release day. That's August 5th. And their stock price has plummeted since, because people who know oil and gas geology know this is not a commercial play anymore. Now, so at this point, it really is just extending the project for as long as you can and making people think there's a chance of a discovery to keep the stock price inflated, keep the project going. But I think if there was data to refute a lot of the negativity being directed at Recon Africa, they would have done it already. Like, they want to stop the stock price bleeding because, let's just go back to that real quick. I mean, this is less than 2 weeks. I mean, it's just been a precipitous fall from the first time they really released any well data. So people aren't impressed, and if they had something to turn the ship around, they would have released it already.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. Whether it's their proximity to consumers, vastly produced transport fees, or eradicating poverty, urban gardens are changing the face of cities around the globe, but even more so in Africa. In this next clip, we take a brief look at how this practice is impacting Namibia and other countries on the continent.
Urban agriculture is the practice of cultivating, processing, and distributing food in or around urban areas. According to the World Bank, this informal sector employs more than 80% of the working population in Africa. More importantly, urban agriculture is helping the poor cope with food scarcity and hunger. Here we meet Yesaya Shipingana, an urban gardener in Windhoek's informal settlement, who shares how lives are being changed by this practice. However, urban agriculture is popular in many African countries. For example, in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, urban gardens in some communities resemble those found in rural areas of that country, with many city dwellers tending home-based gardeners primarily for household food. In Lusaka, Zambia, over half of the residents practice urban agriculture to grow their own food, while in other cities like Kampala, Uganda, and Yaoundé, Cameroon, many urban households even raise livestock.
People who want to become better, they need to engage themselves in vocational subject or into area where they can pick the necessary skills and able to use them in the future and upgrade on that. It's all about upgrading and take more seriously. You take things seriously, and that's it.
As Shipingana mentioned, acquiring agricultural skills is essential for urban gardening since it assists greatly with community food security. Food security means that safe and nutritious food is readily available, accessible, and reasonably priced. Moreover, it provides healthy and plentiful substitutes to purchased foods, especially in poor households. Besides food security, urban agriculture can also provide people with a primary or supplemental income. Income from urban agriculture is particularly high in many African cities. In Bamako, Mali, for example, and Dar es Salaam, the economic return to urban farming has been estimated to be comparable to the income of unskilled construction workers. And in some areas, urban farming can be even more lucrative. For example, during the rainy season in Yaoundé, farmers using wastewater irrigation can sell vegetables at more than double the wet season price, and urban agriculture incomes were estimated to be 50% above minimum wage.
Yeah, it should be, it should go countrywide so that we become self-sufficient. We eradicate poverty among our people. We create job opportunity. We reduce gender-based violence. People are frustrated because there's no food. People are frustrated because there's no job. Why? We can respond to this. This is the only way. My ultimate goal is to get land,
empower communities,
empower the community, empower the nation, reduce a little bit of weight of unemployment, create job opportunity, cut gender-based violence because people are frustrated. People are not doing this. We are not saying people should do this, but people are frustrating. There's nothing to eat. There's nothing to do. There's nothing and nothing. But first and foremost, the objectives: self-sufficiency in terms of food, creating job opportunities, eradication of poverty among our people, malnutrition and hunger, poverty, improving the living standard of our people.
In Namibia, the Agricultural Ministry in May this year launched the Build Back Better project on urban agriculture, which is aimed at strengthening food systems. The program, funded by the Japanese government, also aims to improve the livelihood of mainly informal vendors and small-scale farmers in urban settings. This is a step in the right direction, since the African Development Bank estimates that if innovation in food systems is fully implemented, the continent can expect to double its maize production, triple soybean production, and double livestock production by 2025. The burden of increasing food demand and a rising food climate footprint makes scaling up innovations in sustainable agricultural intensification crucial. To be successful, urban agriculture needs to become part of mainstream city and regional planning. An example to emulate is Kampala, Uganda's governing authority that has integrated urban agriculture into the city's slum development plan. The city officials view this as a solution for youth unemployment, and there are already efforts underway to train the youth how to carry out vertical farming in small spaces. Back in Windhoek, Hendrik Gabriel echoes these sentiments.
That there are those that are fighting to push life ahead, and also in terms of satisfactory, whether within the environments or within the countries. We have a lot of Namibian youth in these countries. Why can't we team up and bring up something so that we can make our country so proud and make it so rich? We are requesting for the land to the governments. Where it's possible, we don't request like from here to Tumel. At least few hectares, so that we can manage, we can able to show that we are capable of. So let the government involve. Let's see who are those able to fight and push ahead of life.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. It's time for us to get into your economic news stories. Our first story comes from Ethiopia. China among top 10 destinations of Ethiopia's coffee export in July. The Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority said on Wednesday that the East African country's export of coffee, tea and spices recorded higher in volume and revenue than the planned target in July 2021. Compared to the same month last year, the country's export performance of the commodities has shown a volume increase of 11,889.73 tons and a revenue of $51.22 million. More than $115.46 million has been earned from coffee exports in July, exceeding the planned export for the month, whereby China was one of the top 10 buyers. With a share of 20% of the revenue, Germany was ranked the first top destination for Ethiopia's coffee export in the month of July. Ethiopia, which is known as the origin of Arabica coffee, is recognized worldwide for its rich coffee quality and flavor, which ranges from winey to fruity and chocolate, making the country's coffee varieties on demand across the globe.
In our next story, UN agency grants $150 million for family farming in Angola. The International Fund for Agriculture Development has granted $150 million to promote family farming in Angola, an Angolan official announced on Tuesday. Over 200,000 families will benefit from the IFAD grant. This is according to Augusto Gubi, coordinator of projects financed by the IFAD at the country's Ministry of Agriculture. The project was signed between the Angolan government and the IFAD, was initially launched to serve the southern provinces of Benguela, Namibi, and Kunene, which have been affected by climate change, according to the official.
In our next story, Zimbabwe may tap private creditors to pay evicted white farmers. Zimbabwe is considering borrowing money directly from private investors to fund the first half of a $3.5 billion compensation agreement with white farmers whose land was seized 2 decades ago, a person familiar with the situation said. The government, which last month appointed London-based New State Partners LLP to help it raise the money, needs to secure $1.75 billion by July next year to meet its obligations. Compensating the farmers is key to Zimbabwe's repairing its relations with the US and other Western countries that imposed sanctions on the country after the often violent land seizures began in the year 2000. If money is raised from private investors, a special purpose vehicle could be set up out offshore, and a portion of the country's tax or royalty earnings from mineral exports could be diverted into it to repay them over a number of years with interest. Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube and his permanent secretary George Guvamatanga didn't respond to calls and text messages seeking comment.
In our next story, July unrest saw over 119 million rand in hard cash stolen from banks and ATMs. The South African Banking Risk Information Center on Wednesday confirmed that at least 1,227 ATMs and 310 bank branches were vandalized or destroyed in the unrest that engulfed KwaZulu-Natal and parts of Gauteng in July, which alarmingly saw over 119.4 million rand physical cash being stolen. SABRIC says this amount does not include the cost of damage to banking infrastructure such as branches and ATM. According to SABRIC, of the 1,227 ATMs hit, 2,256 ATMs were breached or broken into using force, and 82 in branches safes were also breached. Around 36 ATMs physically stolen from sites have been recovered to date.
Now, in the last of our economic news stories, Nigeria's CEOs amongst best paid in Africa, according to PwC. Chief executives of Nigerian-listed companies are among sub-Saharan Africa's highest earners, according to a new report by PwC. The median value of total guaranteed packages, which includes base pay and benefits for the heads of Nigerian companies, is $323,000, the accounting firm said on Thursday in a remuneration report. That's the highest among 7 sub-Saharan African countries, excluding South Africa, and is based on data published by 382 companies, it said. Nigeria is home to the continent's biggest building materials producer, Dangote Cement PLC, owned by Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote. The country has the biggest companies by market value on the continent outside South Africa in the food and beverage, banking and energy industries through Nestle Nigeria PLC, Guarantee Trust Holding Co., and Seplat Energy PLC. The market capitalization of Nigeria's stock exchange is $49 billion, compared with South Africa's $1.1 trillion boss, which boasts the biggest listed company in Africa, according to Naspers. All right, that brings us to the end of our economic news stories. Next up, economic indicators. Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. It's time for us to get those important sports news updates as we head into the weekend. And the best way to do that is by chatting with Ari Hochad in South Africa. Good morning, Ari. How are you?
Yes, Azwan, yes, very good morning. It's lovely. Always a nice day, a Friday. Hopefully all the teams will do well. Your football team's got a tough assignment this weekend, so I hope the stress is not too big.
To be fair, Ari, supporting my football team is a tough assignment, but do take away the sports stories.
Yes, let's start with some golf news. It's one of the big ones in the women's golf calendar that's happening at the moment. That started yesterday. It is the British Open for ladies that is being played at Carnoustie, that is in Scotland. And the front leader is Korda of the USA on -5, 67 she played. Also, the same score is Madeline Sackstrom of Sweden, also on -5. So the ladies British Open in Carnoustie, one of the big tournaments. And Nelly Korda, one of the favorites. She won gold at the Olympic Games just a few weeks ago as well. And South African interest, 3 South Africans playing this. It is Paulo, even par 72, Ashley Buhai +1, and Leanne Pace also on 1 over par. Then just Northern Trust Open, that is Leanne Pace, and hopefully she will do well in the second round of the Ladies British Open. And the Northern Trust Open is also being played in the USA on the men's PGA Tour. Big tournament there, all the top players in the world playing, and low scores there in the beginning. It is Justin Thomas and John Rahm, 2 of the leading golfers in the world, that is on -8, 64 they played. So a great start for them. Southern African interest a little bit down on the leaderboard at the moment. Eric van Rooyen and Garrick Hugo both on 2 under par. To some rugby news. It's this weekend or tomorrow. It is the Springboks that play the second rugby championship game against Argentina in Cabata, there in the Eastern Cape, the old Port Elizabeth. And it was a good start for the Springboks in the first game. The All Blacks and the Wallabies only play their game next week. They have a bye this weekend. And the news from the rugby championships is that there's even a good chance that some of the remaining games, or the remaining games after this weekend, could be played in Europe. So that is a big discussion that's going on at the moment, and that is obviously because of COVID. New Zealand closed their borders. Already they're playing all the games in Australia, so there's challenges in Perth. They're more strict there at the moment, and so there's even talks that all those games could be played in Europe. That would be quite interesting, but I suppose that they will have crowds and lots of supporters that will be there for New Zealand and Argentina. Also, some soccer news that we got earlier. The tough game for Arsenal that I mentioned was they hosted Chelsea after losing the first game last weekend. It's a tough assignment for Arsenal to play at home against Chelsea, but playing at home makes a big difference. As we saw in the first week, it will be a full house for Arsenal, and they will probably bounce back. Other teams or other matchups of the weekend, Saturday, tomorrow, it's Liverpool at home against Burnley. And then the defending champions, Manchester City, they're at home against Norwich. And the big on Sunday is Hampton that hosts Manchester United. And still on the transfer news, Harry Kane have not made up his mind yet if he's going to stay with Tottenham Hotspur. So that is still developing news. On to some tennis. It's the Cincinnati Open, a big tournament for men and being played at the moment. Southern African interest, unfortunately, it was Lloyd Harris, lost in the round of 32 against Alex Zverev of Germany, 7-6, 6-2. And some of the big names that's through, Daniel Medvedev won last weekend in Canada. He beat Gregor Dimitrov 6-3, 6-3. Stefanos Tsitsipas also through. And on the women's singles side, it is Ashley Barty of Australia that beat Victoria Azarenka 6-love and 6-2. And then Naomi Osaka of Japan. She's also through to the round of 16, where she'll play Jill Teichmann. So that is the Cincinnati Open in the men's and the women's, both sections that play there at the moment. And also to close maybe with some cycling news, we don't often talk about the BMX side of cycling. We did the Tour de France, etc. But at the most popular and exciting events, it is this weekend the World Championship, the Cycling BMX World Championships. It is going to be in Papendal in the Netherlands, and to be represented there, and some Southern African or South African interest there as well. And there will be 4 sections. It will be the elite men and also the elite women. And then there's also the junior men and junior women, and that is going to be on Sunday. That is the once off world, just once every year, the World Championship Cycling BMX. We'll report on that on Monday. So that's the sporting news. I hope it's a great day for everyone, and hopefully Arsenal do well as we talk again on all the results.
All right. As for me, I'm happy that the BMX championships are also happening on Sunday. If the Arsenal game isn't going well for me, I'm just going to switch the channel. You know, we need to take care of our energy in this day and age. That was Ari with the sports news. We certainly hope you're excited getting into the weekend. After the break, we're going to be back with your headlines. From Monday right up until Friday, Africa Good Morning streams from 7 a.m., bringing you the news and current affairs you need to know happening in the SADC region and beyond. Now, if you perhaps missed today's top stories, or if you need a recap, worry not, here are some of the headlines. Taliban triumph means more worries in Africa. Guinea identifies 58 contacts of Ebola patient in Ivory Coast. Rwandan troops notched up early successes in Cabo Delgado. Somalia army kills 25 al-Shabaab fighters. China among top 10 destinations of Ethiopia's coffee export in July. Golf, ladies British Open at Coronzati, Scotland, and men's tour Northern Trust Open in the USA, and in Europe, the Czech Masters. Those have been our stories.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you again on Monday, same time, same place. Please do visit our website. It's oneup2.com for more content that you'd love to see. We also welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can email them to us. Our email is agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na. Alternatively, we are on Facebook and Twitter. It's at Africa Good Morning. And on that note, it's all our love and all our light.
Until Monday, Sweda Shakanaka.